All of the questions that we are going to be looking at through this whole chapter are about triangles that look like this. Now they're called right-angled triangles. We know they're right-angled triangles because they've got that little square in the corner of each one. That tells us that they are right angles. Now, all of today's questions will be using Pythagoras' theorem. So Pythagoras' theorem, which I'll put on the board a little bit later, is a way to help us find out how long each side of the triangle is. To start off today, we will always be trying to find out how long this side here is, the diagonal side. So for the first part of the lesson, all the questions you see will have an X or a letter, it could be any letter, on the diagonal side here. Now this diagonal side does have a fancy name, and you do need to know what it is. It starts with H. You might remember because you will have seen it last year, but I want you to make a note, have this triangle drawn down, and make a note that that diagonal side is always called the hypotenuse. So from now on, whenever I talk about that side, I'm going to call it the hypotenuse. What I would like you to do now is draw the rest of these triangles and put an X on the hypotenuse of each one. The way to tell which one it is it's always the diagonal side, and it's always the one that this little box is pointing at. So see how the point of that little square is pointing to that side there? That's how you know it's the hypotenuse. Draw these triangles and put an X on each hypotenuse, please. If you labelled it like this, you are correct. They are on each hypotenuse of your triangles. Okay, I'm going to wipe that clean, draw a new triangle. When you see it, I want you to copy it down as well, please. Alright, this is what the questions will look like in this chapter. You will see a triangle. They've told you that this side is 5 centimetres, this side is 8 centimetres. You need to find out how long that side there is. You need to find out how long the hypotenuse is. And there is a formula that you can use to do that. Alright? I'll put the formula up now. Okay, here's the formula. I'd like you to have this formula copied down as well. Make it big, make it stand out. This is one of those things that you need to highlight, put a box around, because this formula will tell you how long that X side is every single time. The important thing we need to know before we can start using it is, what do each of these letters stand for? So whenever you see a triangle that looks like this, with an X on the hypotenuse, this is the formula that you'll use. What you need to know is that C, that letter there, that stands for hypotenuse. Make a little note of this in your notes as well. And it also means that these two letters, A and B, they just stand for the other two sides of the triangle. So A and B just stand for the two sides that are not the hypotenuse. Now this is really important. It doesn't matter which side you call A and which side you call B. It doesn't matter which one is which, you'll get the same answer either way. So let's make sure we've got some information that looks like that. We've got the formula and these little reminders underneath. Write down that, so pause it, write down that formula, and then I want you to label each of these sides with A, B, and C. For this whole chapter, green will be our labelling colour. If you've got a green, I want you to do the same, and it'll make it really handy because we're going to be labelling throughout this whole chapter. Write that down like I have, then label these sides with A, B, and C. Go. Alright, my labelling looks like that. Remember, it doesn't matter which one you call A and which one you call B, as long as you don't put it on the hypotenuse there. So if you have A there and B there, that's actually totally fine as well. You'll still get the same correct answer. Now, we can swap these purple letters for the proper numbers into our formula, and then our calculator will do the rest. Rewrite this formula, but swap the letters A, B, and C for the numbers or letters here, and then we'll see if we've got it the same. Alright, if yours looks like that, then your answer is correct. You've swapped the C for the letter X, We've got an A next to the 8, so we wrote that there, and then a B is with the 5, so we wrote that there. Once you get this far, your calculator will do the rest. Don't type that in, just type that whole thing. Make sure it's under one big square root sign. So you need to make sure your calculator screen looks exactly the same as this. Press the square root button, have one big square root sign, then put everything else underneath it, and then press enter. You might need to press, if you've got a CAS, Control Enter to turn it into a decimal. Or if you've got the green calculator, press those two little arrows above the answer, above the enter button to get the answer. I want it as a decimal. Let's go for 2 decimal places. Go. The correct answer is 9.43 centimetres. Remember, if your screen says square root 89, you need to push Control Enter if it's a CAS, or the 2 little arrows above the enter button if it's the green calculator, and it will give you this answer here. So that is the correct answer. All right, I'm going to put 2 more up on the board. Here is our triangle. We need to find out how long this side here is with the X on it. First thing I want you to do is press pause, label your triangle with the letters A, B, and C. C is the really important letter. That's got to go on the hypotenuse. A and B, not so important which one is which. Go. Okay, now that our triangle is labelled, make sure your C is here. It doesn't matter if you put A there and B there. They are interchangeable as long as you've got them on these 2 sides here, that's fine. Now, I'd like you to rewrite the formula, but instead of writing C equals A squared plus B, instead of writing those letters, swap it for the blue numbers and letters here. Go. That's what the formula will look like once you've swapped A, B, and C for the numbers in the triangle. Remember, C is what was here in your purple formula from before, so we'll swap that for an X, A squared plus B squared under a big square root sign. Put it in your calculator, get 2 decimal places in your answer. Your answer is 15.81 centimetres. Well done if you got that correct. Let's do one more. I'll put another triangle on the side. Here's our next question. We're trying to find how long the hypotenuse is. It's the same thing. The triangle's facing a different way. It's the same thing. I've just used a different letter this time, but that doesn't change anything. Label your triangle A, B, and C. Your labelling should look like this. The really important thing is that C is on the hypotenuse, that diagonal side there. A and B, as long as they're on the other 2 sides, that's correct. All right, rewrite the formula. Swap the letters A, B, and C for the blue numbers and letters there. That's what you should have on your paper now. If your paper looks like that, you can type it in the calculator and it will give you the answer. Let's go for 2 decimal places. The correct answer is 9.85 centimetres. This had to be rounded up. So if you had 8.4, that means you didn't round off your answer properly. We can help you in class if you need help with rounding. Otherwise, like we said last time, watch a quick YouTube video if you need to. All right, I'm going to wipe that clean and show you some slightly different questions. Okay, have a look at this triangle that I've drawn here and see if you can work out why it's a little bit different to the questions that we just did. Have a look where the numbers and the letters are and see if you can work out why this question is slightly different. You'll notice that here's the hypotenuse. Now this time we already know how long the hypotenuse is. Look where the letter or the X is this time. It's on one of the other sides. So these last couple of questions are if you're trying to find one of the other sides that's not the hypotenuse. That formula that we've been using only works when you're trying to find out how long the diagonal side is, the hypotenuse is. I'm going to give you a different formula now that we can use whenever we have questions that want us to find out how long that side there or that side there is. Okay, here is our formula. It's still got the same letters. It's just been moved around a little bit and now it's got a minus in the middle. We need to know what each of the letters stand for, and it does mean almost exactly the same thing. We know what the letter C stands for. So as you're writing this down, I think you could already write down underneath that C stands for hypotenuse. So write that down again. What's important to note here is this time, let's always make A the letter that we don't know, or the side that we don't know. So always here, let's say that whenever we're trying to change the formula and use it in this format, whatever letter is there is the side we don't know. Just like last time, we always had the hypotenuse, or C was always here on its own. The X was always before the equal sign. We want to do the same thing here. Make this side here the side that we don't know. That means that B has to be the only one that's left over, okay? So B is, and we could call it, if you wanted to, we could say that that one there is the other number that we know. You could call it that if you wanted to. So make sure you've got that written down. Then, so pause it, have that written down, then label your triangle with A, B, and C. Okay, C is still the hypotenuse. Remember, C is always the hypotenuse, so that always goes on the diagonal side. A is the side that we don't know, so we've put the A down here because we don't know how long that side is. Which means B is the other number that we know, well there's the other number that we know. Now, rewrite the purple formula, but swap the letters A, B, and C for the numbers and letters in blue. Go. Your formula should look like this now. You've swapped the A with the X, because that's the side that we don't know. And then the C is the first thing in the under the square root, and the other number on the end. Type it in your calculator. Let's have it to 2 decimal places. Your answer is 11.18 centimetres. I'm going to put one more on the board to practice, and then we're done. Okay, copy down this triangle, please, and label the sides with A, B, and C. Your labelled triangle should look like this. A is the side that we don't know, the one that we're trying to find out. C is always the hypotenuse, the diagonal side, and then B is the other number. All right, rewrite your new purple formula. Swap the letters for the numbers. Once substituted, it should look like this. The one that we don't know is before the equals sign here, and then everything else is underneath the square root sign. Type in your calculator, 2 decimal places. X equals 7.94 centimetres. Okay, that's it. That's enough to get you started for today. You can now continue with the questions that have been set.